So that's the Prime Minister talking about really the various schemes from MSME to skill development, important announcements made for farmers, for various sections of society. And we've been bringing you several of those updates. Let's quickly go across to our panel. Joining us, of course, here in the studio, we have Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, editorial director of Swaraja. R. Jagannathan is with us. We also have Dr. Santosh Mehrotra, senior economist. Rohinton Sidhwa is a partner of Deloitte India. Joining us from outside the studio, we have Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst. We also have with us Rohan Gupta, who's a national spokesperson of the BJP. Joining us also at this moment is Naina Lal Kidwai, past president of FICCI and chairperson of Rothschild & Co. India, as well as Chair India Sanitation Coalition. Vivek Sailas, national spokesperson of Samajwadi Party, is also with us. But Naina Lal Kidwai, let me come to you first. Your reactions to this budget, of course, a huge focus as far as capex is concerned, but a lot of the new schemes that have been announced, how do you look at them?
You know, I think, and we've just heard the Prime Minister, there's due cause for excitement on the whole MSME push. It's clearly a very critical sector for India, with over 34% of manufacturing output being in the MSME areas. And it's an area that is needing some help. If you look at the budget announcements, and I find some of the finance-related ones particularly exciting, the SMEs seeing the potential guarantee of up to 100 crores. There's a new assessment model for SMEs in terms of credit by the public sector banks. So the ease of making finance available to this sector is clearly very much on the agenda for government to goad and push banks, but also to provide some of the incentives to do that. Mudra loans being increased from 10 to 20 lakhs for those that have repaid their earlier tranches and therefore shown their creditworthiness. The reduction of the TREDS threshold for mandatory onboarding. I think these are all very, very positive steps. A second area, and this was a big FICCI ask, and in fact something I'd captured in an article earlier in your paper in the Economic Times, was the plug-and-play aspect of industrial parks, which is a very important aspect of enabling MSMEs, where we've seen announcement now of 12 industrial parks being sanctioned and focus on rental housing and dormitory type accommodation for which would really be helpful for smaller companies where housing is not easy to provide. So much in there for the MSME sectors. And the second one I want to highlight as a space I work in is the whole urban development space, where the government's success in Swachh Bharat mission is getting replicated through, again, increased assistance. And there's a 3% increase in the budgetary allocation for Swachh Bharat Rural from the last fiscal. So not a huge increase, but at least it's up. And the budgetary allocation for SBM Urban, which has seen an almost 100% increase from last.
I want to draw your attention to also the employee-linked incentives. Now, this is something normally we see the opposition criticize the government, and this particular case of this announcement and the internship announcement, you know, there's been a sort of credit war because you have the opposition saying that, Congress in particular, that this was part of our manifesto, so on and so forth. But in terms of the announcement itself, do you think that this is going to create a huge incentive for manufacturers and others to actually, you know, go for these employee-linked incentives? Because a lot of talk of jobless growth that we've seen over the last few years, do you think that, you know, stands to perhaps come to an end now with these schemes being implemented?
So I think it's a very big step in the right direction. It's the first time we're really seeing significant employment benefit-related job guarantee type of schemes coming through. I think at the end of the day, every industry will evaluate this for where it sits already in terms of its own growth. And labor-intensive industries, like toys and leather and textiles and apparels, which are being looked at to be incentivized, whether through PLIs or through measures such as this, will clearly benefit. In itself, employee guarantee schemes aren't an incentive alone. Do they ease the way? Do they encourage? Do they goad companies to look at this? Absolutely. So very welcome as a step.
Right. Also, I'd like to get you in on the personal taxes aspect, because as we were discussing earlier here in the studio, while there have been about 17,500 rupees cut in terms of the personal tax, capital gains tax has been a slightly different story there, with the actual percentage also being increased. How do you see the new tax proposals that are coming out of this budget?
Well, the market's telling us a lot in terms of the capital gains tax. And my worry is that we're spending so much time discussing this that we're missing what is a lot of meaty and good in the budget. But as you asked, I think there is a story out there which is putting money back in the hands of people. And therefore, you're seeing some of the consumption type of stocks going up. And that is a plus. Personally, I'm disappointed on the capital gains tax tinkering. I feel we've only just sort of reached the sort of levels where domestic mutual funds were, in fact, keeping the FII volatility at bay. And it's something which I hope will not suffer through this. Maybe the markets do recover. At the end of the day, corporate performance is what is going to drive the markets. Okay. So everything that this budget holds out in terms of promise on corporate performance, and let's not forget, there is a promise of reduction for foreign MNCs, and we have a lot of foreign multinationals in India, FDI therein being therefore encouraged. These are all plus points as well on the other side. So as long as corporate performance stacks up, as long as people get more money in their hands to spend in terms of consumption, these would be the much more important long-term plays than the temporary disappointment on the capital gains tax.
I'd like to thank you, ma'am, for joining us on the panel. We also have